Hello and welcome back. My name is Matthew and I'm the C# Artisan. And this is the fourth video in my series on Azure Service Bus. The video is titled Peek versus Delete, which tells you we're going to start looking at all the different options you have when it comes to receiving messages out of an Azure Service Bus queue. So here we are back in the Azure portal, looking at my queue namespace, my service bus namespace, and you can see I've got this queue set up and it has no messages. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is what happens when you attempt to receive messages out of a queue and there's nothing in there. Here's our C# code where we're creating a service bus client, creating a service bus receiver, and receiving a message from that queue. So what's going to happen when there's nothing in the queue? Well, let's test it out. Here we go. Let's receive. And it just hangs. Basically, it's going to sit here a long time until it hits a default timeout. So that's not really a behavior we want. Luckily, when we call receive message async, we can supply a timeout. It is the first optional parameter. So we can say timespan dot from seconds, and let's choose 5 seconds. And now it should time out in 5 seconds. But then we have to be careful because if it does time out, message is going to be null. So let's guard for that. So if message is not equal to null, then we can write the message body to the console here, and we can complete the message to remove it from the queue. Otherwise, let's just debug write line . Wow, I'm having a little trouble typing today. So let's try this out and see what happens. In theory, we should wait here for 5 seconds. And then when the timeout elapses, our code will continue. And because there's no message in the queue, we just write that out. Fantastic. Okay, so let's compare this to what happens when there is a message in the queue. And one thing that I have done is I've created a little utility over here, which allows me to easily put messages in the queue. All I have to do is give it a number of how many messages I want, and it'll put a message in the queue for me. And now if I go and refresh this, you can see I've got an active message. So let's run this again. And we will receive the message, and it returns almost immediately because there is a message. And then this was message 1. We complete the message, refresh, and the message is gone. All right, so that is the default receive behavior I showed you in the last video. So there is another behavior, and this is one where when you receive the message, it's going to get deleted right away, and you don't have to do this thing about completing the message. So the way that is done is with what are called service bus receiver options. So let's make some new options. And the setting we're going to set on our options is called receive mode. And we're going to set it to service bus receive mode, receive and delete. The other one you probably saw real quick there is called peek lock. That's the default, but we're going to test the other one, which is receive and delete. And now when we create our receiver and we pass in our queue name, we can also give it some options. So this is going to have a different behavior. And I'm going to send another message into the queue. And we can run this right here. And so I'm going to stop right before I receive the message. Let's refresh, and you can see we have an active message. And now I'm going to receive the message. And we got a message, and we're going to write it out. That was message 1. And I haven't completed it yet. And I refresh, and you see it's actually gone. It's been deleted. So you may wonder, why do you need to complete it? And the answer is actually you don't, and you can't. This is going to throw an exception. So when I attempt to complete a message, when I wasn't using peak lock, I get this error. The operation is only supported in peak lock receive mode. Okay, so we can just stop this. And what that tells you is that if you are using receive and delete, you don't have to bother with completing the messages or any of the other options like abandoning them or sending them to the dead letter queue, all of which we'll cover in a later video. So now you understand your two options for peaking or receiving and deleting. In the next video, we're going to start looking in more detail into this peak mode and all the different nuances and options you have for controlling the behavior when you're peaking messages.